Thank you. So we're here to talk about the state of UX research and how we can make impactful research. So what's the background for this? To those who don't know, there's a lot of talk in social media, on Medium, on LinkedIn about the crisis in UX research. And let's break it up a bit and understand what it means if you haven't read any of that or some of that. So if until like 2 years ago, we were living in sort of a golden age of UX research. We saw research positions multiplying. We saw kind of fancy specializations popping up, like research ops, like qual research, quant research. We saw research getting into new places, new organizations, small organizations, into new places within organizations, like other teams, through democratization. So it seems like everything was good. We're happy. We felt like we finally understood. People understand why we are needed and why research is needed. And then the slowdown came. We saw the slowdown in high tech. We saw a lot of layoffs happening in UX and specifically in UX research. And I experienced it. A lot of people here who experienced it. It wasn't easy. And people started wondering, like, do other people understand what we're doing? Do they understand the value of what we're doing? Or not only researchers, but anyone who does research. Is there a problem for research in showcasing its value? And so this kind of triggered these conversations online, in research forums, on Medium. So people started asking all of those big questions about what are we doing wrong? Are we doing anything wrong? What can we do better? So today we're here to try and answer these questions, but in a unique way. So instead of just bringing a bunch of researchers and discussing it between ourselves, we decided to bring our users. So by users, I mean our stakeholders, the people who manage UX and research and product teams, the people who guide our research, the people who consume our research and act on it. So we'll get their perspective and kind of expand and kind of get out of our heads and understand how we can make research that is impactful, and how we can make research that leaves stakeholders waiting for more. So we have a select group of these people. They'll introduce themselves in a minute. So we'll start by asking our own questions, and questions that we gathered from during registration, and then we'll open it up for the audience to ask their questions as well.
I just want to check if it's open. I said you already started. So, okay, so let's start by introduction. So we have, by the way, Ariela, Tamar, and Aviran here. So let's start with that. So can you just please introduce yourself and your interaction with research as in your career or now?
Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm Ariela. I'm leading a few design teams here at Autodesk, globally spread, so one in Tel Aviv, India, China, and US. My interaction with in general UX research, I think it started a little over 10 years ago when I conducted my first user testing. Back then, we didn't have user researcher, and this was something that I read about and thought that, hey, this is something that could be really interesting to try and see. Oh, this one. Try this one. Okay. So anyway, this was something I did for some features back then I worked at, and it really opened my eyes on like the impact of research. I know that for researchers, user testing is like really, really a small portion of the magnificent and variety of tools and capabilities. But for me, back then, it was like the spark of my journey with user test, with with research. From then until now, I really got the privilege to work with some talented researchers and learn more and more about the capabilities and how research done properly can really impact our decision, which by that impact, the business results. So this is something that an approach I really believe in.
Thanks. Hi, everyone. I'm Tamar. I currently work at Taboola. I'm head of product for emerging products, and I also lead the UX team. So it's actually product design team. Also has one UX researcher. My sort of passion for research, I think, well, I don't know how to sort of phrase it, if it's officially or unofficially. So my background is in design. I'm a designer in terms of training. And then my first kind of job was a UX designer. There wasn't, can you hear? Is it working? Closer, like that? Is that now like that? Okay. Good. Glad we established this. Okay. So I started off as a UX designer, and I think at the time there wasn't really a separation between, like there wasn't a role of UXR. So the UX designer would essentially do user testing, etc. Not a lot of the other stuff that you've mentioned, but that was pretty much the scope of it. And then from there, mostly done product for the majority of my career until a few years ago. I've led in Get the behavioral insights unit. So essentially it was, how do we do applied research and how do we incorporate insights from academic research into our products and doing it sort of across the company. And I guess this is really where my love affair with research has started, since I've done a master's at LSE in behavioral science and kind of leading and bringing in research to Taboola as well. And I guess that's it. Right.
Hi, can you hear me? I'm Aviran. Today I'm a VP design at a company named Bit, not the Bit that you pay money. This is a more global company. We're doing development with components, and it's like a tool for the entire product team. I was founder of an agency called Pumika, which was a UX and product strategy company. And we worked a lot of years. We had something like 40 people, designers, UX researchers, and all kind of people, and illustrators, everything. And we were eco-hired by a company named Soluto, which was right about here, right this corner. And we were part of one of the first of the big layoffs of last year. And our site was closed. This is what we were, a site of an enterprise, a big company named Aviran. And they closed our site in Tel Aviv, and we were all spread out to other areas. But when we, my partner in Pumika, Shahaf, and we joined Soluto, I took the design team, and Shahaf was leading the UX research team. We were 4 years there. Now lastly, he was leading product for a couple of products. But you said that we are the users of you guys, but I see this more the partnership. I think this is more accurate how things go. We work very closely with UX research, and we worked in a full agile way, like the full process, very close with UX researchers. We had UX research for each domain, and also for we have leadership of UX research. We have UX writing that was part of this area, and also we had the global company over there. We had more UX researchers, and they were a little bit different. Ours were more close to the product, and they were not part of the UX team. We worked very, very closely, but we preferred they were part of the product team so they can be closer to the product and to the decision making, because we were already pretty close in the design. So in that way they benefit from both worlds. So this is, I think this is, I said enough.
Okay, thank you. So all of you seem to have had like really a lot of interaction with research in one way or another. And this brings me to the question, kind of the hard question of today. Do you think research has a problem? Like, do you think research has been struggling to showcase its value? Do you see that happening when you talk about research with leadership? What do you think about that? Anyone volunteering?
So I think that from the article you shared, like the midlife crisis of research, I would rephrase it as to a branding issue. I think that today when we hear about research in organization, it's hard for leadership, it's hard for, exec management to understand the core value because it's not tangible. So it's hard to measure. I believe that most of the time when managers that are not that familiar with research, when they hear research, it's like, oh, wow, that's like a lot of investment and high level, speculations, or like a project that will take so much time and will get us farther and farther from the due dates we're aiming for. So I believe that with the right tools, with the right messages, with the right approach, we can rebrand that in a way that we can actually show the value of research in the organization. So for me, this is like, it's just rebranding.
Okay. Okay. Right. So I have a bit of a different approach. So basically, I think with any, and it's not just research, right? But I think tech companies have a certain hierarchy, and there are things that are in the main core. And when things get sort of tough, then there are certain jobs and positions that are hurt more than others. And I think this is sort of almost like a natural way of things. And it's actually, I don't think it says anything sort of necessarily bad about research. I just think, you can still, if you, and think of yourself, right? Try to think of it from an entrepreneurial point of view. If you manage a company and you need to, still go to market, still cater to clients, et cetera, but you need to do it with half of your team, then who do you lay off? So I don't think it's necessarily, anyone has done anything wrong, but in a way, I think it's sort of, I don't want to say nice to have, because I think it is really important to have, but I think you could do without it. By the way, I think you could do without product managers as well. Like most of the companies have started with, developers, business people, visionaries,
and designers, and soon
and
developers.
designers, and yeah, but that's what I'm saying. You need sort of people who can deliver, and I think research does not fall classically into that category, and that is sort of part of a, I don't want to say problem, but I guess part of the problem. Like if you say, why do they get laid off first or more proportionately, then I would say, I would guess that is why. I do have a few kind of positives to say about how we can overcome it, but I guess we'll get to that. So yeah, don't hate.
I'll say the problem first, and then you solve them. I agree with Tamar. I also think this is I think it's a market problem and not like the role problem. Everybody gets laid off. The PMs are getting the same thing, and salespeople and all people that are affected by scaling and the reducing of innovation, right? What they're doing now, they're cutting innovation and they're cutting scaling, and this is affect directly those kind of people, who the people are in charge of these kind of functions in the company. They're being reduced, and UX research is a profession where you go deeper and you like expand things, and you will go more professional and more and do it like deeper and more broader, and you're getting a zoom out of everything you've been doing. So they're being laid off because they still don't know what's going on. I think once it settles down and we will start scaling things again, they'll come back because they'll need their scaling. And the other thing that I think is affecting is what kind of company and leadership they have in the company. We've talked about this right before this, but we have a couple of types of companies. We have engineering-led companies, we have sales-led company, we have product-led company, and vision-led companies. So the engineering-led company, of course, they're going to see their, like, who is holding the thing is the developers, right? So of course, the developers are here to stay, and designers and everybody else basically is the nice to have, as you said, because this is the way their approach to the problem solving and what they do in case of emergency. This is what they keep around them. I think sales are the same. They're like they're feeding off the sales. They will try to they will reduce it, but they try to keep it. I think product led companies are the ones that might still have UX researchers and more than other companies, because it's embedded in like the how you do product, like how do you figure out like what solution to have, what kind of solution we can have, what customers are doing, and when they are scaling, they need someone who set the standards, not just like people doing randomly user testings. So that's what I think. The vision one is like more broad vision, like the CEO kind of company. We have a lot of those. Like it's the Apple kind of. Everyone thinks they're Apple when they're founders, but this is the one that are doing this after a while. Like they are CEO led in the beginning and even a little bit after. And you're very concerned if the CEO is leaving or something. You think everything is dead. I hope I described it right.
Okay, so some good news, some like more like harsh news for UX research here, but we didn't bring you to here to give us only the good news. But we are also wondering, like, if you can give us some examples of research that really worked for you, that was really clear in your company, that made an impact, that was important, that has value. Anyone wants to start? What was it about it that made it this way? That would be interesting.
Okay, so I think especially for Taboola, it's a company who works a lot with big data. And what I mean sort of big data, I mean like in the sort of millions of data points for sort of an analysis. And, you know, seriously, one of the struggles that we had, that anything below that was sort of like, wait, this is based on what, 20 users, like 15 users? Well, you know, why is this, why should we take note of it? But I think that is precisely actually why it was compelling also for higher management. And the specific type of research, and I can give a few examples of it, is what we call sort of internally exploratory research, where essentially we're trying to sort of figure out what we don't know that we don't know. So this could be either just coming in sort of blank and doing a user test on an existing product, or actually coming to a competitive product that people assume that works really well and doing competitive tests, also essentially user test on the competitive product. And I think that those sort of insights were resonating throughout the company, because people suddenly, you know, they had videos of users saying, wait, I don't get what this is, and I don't get what I'm doing, or, oh, this is really cool, like this is really, you know, and having that response instead of just a funnel was in ways transformative. You know, for them it was like, wow, it was like a big eureka moment. And we're like, yeah, this is what we were saying, you know, user research, you try it sometime. But I think that doing that sort of research was very transformative, more than I would say we measure what type of research we do in terms of percentage. So the majority of research is your classic usability research, right? We've got a solution in mind. We're doing sort of some sorts of validation, A/B testing different variations of it. But the exploratory research are always the one that sort of resonate the most and like make the chips falls. Can you translate it to that? So yeah, make people kind of think more deeply about the product and what works and what doesn't. So this is what we found that I guess resonates the best.
I can give an example of research that has helped us to use more of the UX research at my previous company. It's Luto. We were working with the CEO, with Tamar, who is a visionary, is a genius. But as a lot of geniuses are doing, sometimes they're waiting for the solution to check their solutions, and they're so smart that they have a lot of solutions and they keep bringing them. So you can't own this with them enough, so you can have a research and like go deeper into something. But what we're trying to do, we're trying to like reverse engineer what he's saying, and trying to like ask him, okay, what would you like to be like? What kind of messages would you like to do? What kind of goals do you think what the user should understand? What feel? What they want them to do? And we took the solution and reverse engineer with those kind of criteria and a lot more criteria, and we created more solutions from the criteria, and then we did user testing. And we did this daily. We worked with them. It was very tough, but we worked daily. We brought exactly what he wants, plus 5 more directions, and brought the research materials, like what the snippets of the voices and videos, and just show him like what users are saying. And he was very he's surprised to see it, and it was very good for feedback. It gave him ideas, but also he stepped a little bit back from the immediate kind of response of what should we do, and was waiting for the answers to come from the users. And I think this was a transformative for our company, because it allowed us to do this more and embed it a little bit differently than what we started initially. Initially, we used it for like other places in the product where they weren't in the spotlight of CEO kind of projects. And after that, we used it even before it was in the spotlight, and it gave us more air. I think I have a lot of more examples, but I like this one because it's so simple. That's why I like it.
I think that's what would work for this visionary,
I think
driven
yes.
Like
I think this.
CEO
Yes, this works for small companies that is in the stage of very tough CEO kind of leading. But you have to do a lot more, because you have to work above your hours, like beyond your hours, and do it with your time. But if you want to get your company or your startup to be working more professionally, this is the way to do it, and this is the way that you can get more ownership, at least feeling of what we're doing. Like, not just do the solution that the stakeholder is asking from you, but also exploring, like using it to get the challenge behind it, and then doing more, and get their trust, hopefully.
I can shortly talk about an incident that we had that we didn't do user testing, and we should have. So there are many examples of why user testing and why doing research is really beneficial, and these aha moments. But when you experience, I'll shortly summarize. We had a project. We wanted to do some user validation, some research. We didn't have time for that. We said, hey, let's do that later. We did that later while engineering were already working on the design deliverables halfway through. And then we found out that we had a blocker with our users. Now, B2B is very problematic. If we have a blocker with our users, with our customers, we cannot launch. It would be much, much harsher for us. The backlash we'll get if we'll release something that for them is not working with so many reasons, so many, you know, examples of like if it's liability, legal stuff. I want to get into the details. Anyway, instead of investing and delaying things in 2 weeks just to pause and do this research, we ended up delaying the project in 2 months because we had to go back, throw a lot of engineering work, and then rework it and work on it again.
Okay. Can you hear here? Yes. Okay. Yeah, so it's a good example of what happens when you don't do research. Yeah. So let's talk about the times when it's hard to sell the research. Maybe before, because like you said, there wasn't much time to do it, or even after the research was done and people were not excited about it. Do you have any examples like that? So share.
I have an example, and this is something that I talked with Ofer, who led the UX research like couple. Shahaf was leading the team before, and then he got to be product lead product. So Ofer was leading it. So he like the one thing that was tough for him, like product managers can be tough. Like in some companies, because the way the company matured, the job of doing those kind of things and deciding what kind of solutions was the PM job. And they are getting they're thinking their value comes from this and it's true. The company is measuring them in the early years on those kind of metrics. Like so when you want to work with them, it's going to be difficult because the company hasn't figured out yet like what is your kind of like what is your job and what their job. So you're competing, and it's happening with UX designers as well. It is not like some PMs are sketching wireframes and bringing them to designers to fill the colors inside or whatever. So it's not just like mainly for them. So he was working with a PM who was a brilliant PM, but he had his way of working. He was like regular to what you're gonna do. He had a funnel, and he was checking the funnel and see like how to optimize it and what kind of thing they could do. He would ideate maybe with the team, but he would not be like stepping back and maybe asking customers before. It was like talking maybe with one customer too. We would watch full stories, like videos of the product, which is already it's pretty good for a team. But it was very difficult to go beyond that to make him like to encourage him to do more and to step back and to take more customers and give them like a flows and try to figure out like what's important in this flow. How to organize things. So he after they did the first time, I think he was addicted to it, and he was part of the team, and they did everything like this. So I think this was a specific part where it went well between PMs and the UX researchers, but a lot of places it's head to head until the management will say, "Hey, this is what we expect you to do now." Like, so this is my story.
I'll apologize because I'm going to be sort of a smartass about it. I have a bit of an aversion to the kind of sell the research. How do you sell the research? I don't think you kind of need to sell the research. I think, you do research, and I think we're the professionals, and it's sort of up to us to do the right research. And if it brings value, then yay. And if it doesn't, then that is sort of a failure. And so I'm gonna be a smartass because I'm gonna kind of answer. I have examples of research that didn't resonate, that wasn't good.
But you're saying that you already have access to making the changes. You're saying it as in a position that you already have the position. Like most UX researchers don't have the position of doing the thing.
I disagree.
Really?
Yes.
Okay.
I think I know I'm quite radical at this, but I think you work at a company, you get paid to do your job, which is we just had that I had this discussion exactly with my team this week, where we have a weekly research meeting and we open up all the sort of research that everybody's doing, and we discuss sort of the dilemmas, the open dilemmas. And one, there was sort of run research from a super talented researcher, and the research is all over the place. So the methodology is I know something went bad. The questions, multiple questions for sort of a tiny research, and I'm like, what's going on? Right? Well, what's happened? And it always, by the way, comes back to the same things where someone is like, oh no, let's do this and let's ask that and let's do the other. And at the end of the day, it's you doing the research. And if you compromise a lot on, the research question and the methodology, the outcome would not represent your abilities and, by the way, the potential for research. So I don't think you need sort of permission to do research. I think as a PM, as a designer, I'm very big advocate for designers doing research themselves, for PMs doing research. I don't think it's should be only UX researchers. I think it's amazing to have UX researchers on the team doing it professionally, but I think everybody should be doing it to some degree. And then you don't need to ask permission. I would rather people try it out and fail and do bad research that doesn't resonate, despite but I don't want our professionals to do the bad research. So I don't want them to compromise. But then the points where it does sort of fail is where the questions are unfocused, where typically you have more than one and maybe very related questions to it in the sort of research that you're going through, then I think it becomes too messy. It's hard to read. It's hard to communicate. And another thing that I think research is limited, and maybe it's sort of my limitation, and if anyone of you has an answer for it, then please do let me know. But I found research to be limited is to check for desirability. So essentially, how much do people want a thing? I think that is something that research is limited in, and a lot of the questions are of that nature. Would people want this? And then you need to go to a deeper question or to something a bit different that is not, it's like a proxy of a question. And if you're trying to just sort of, well, we'll show them two options and see, all sorts of kind of weird stuff like that, then I think you just get bad results that actually skews you into the wrong direction. So yeah, so research that went bad is definitely one of these categories for me.
I can piggyback you're being a smartest and also do the same. Yes, research can definitely fail when it's not connected to, when it doesn't have clear KPIs, when it's not connected and tie really well to the business goals. And that happens, hence branding issue, back to the, the former question.
I just want to say, to answer what you just said, I'm not sure what kind of structure you guys have in the company, but some structures will see this as there I fixed it for you, kind of if you're doing this for other team as a UX researchers, because you're not this part of that team, right? There are a couple of teams, each one has responsibilities, and you're doing this for them, and you're giving them this. So first of all, I see a couple of scenarios. First of all, they're going to see this as an aggressive kind of action. If you're doing this in this kind of way, you want them to be a partner for this. sometimes you'll finish this by the time they're finished the thing, and then you'll show it and just be saying, hey, you did this all wrong, haha, and just present it, and they're finished. They're up to their next project, right? Mm-hmm. And you're just shaming them maybe in front of the company, and not being like doing this in the right way for to create an impact, just to be a smart ass, as you said. The other thing is sometimes they don't have time. They don't have, like you want to be creating time and have create in a way so they have time to consume it. And I say it because we were working very closely with the researchers, and they brought us gold mines of data, and we just didn't have time to process it and like embed it into the plan, the work plan that we had. We scheduled it, and we didn't make it in terms of actually using it. So when Oren asked the question, I was like thinking like how to make people use the research, because you did it and now it's there and it's a bunch of pages or videos or whatever, but because you didn't come on time, who's going to use it? And this is like the most heart-wrenching thing to see. A lot of good work going to waste because they moved on. And this is a hard thing. This is a very hard thing to see.
Okay, so you bring us pretty well to the next question of, you mentioned a lot of problems.
You're going to find the next one.
We have seen a lot of problems here that you raised. Branding, maybe not being part of the core work, maybe not doing research that is good enough, or just not working well enough with stakeholders. So if we do want to make impactful research as researchers or as designers who are doing research or PMs who are doing research, what are the best ways to do that?
I'll try. Right, challenge accepted. So, I think, and this actually does answer the sort of coming in late into the game, right? I think good research doesn't really have like a very sort of time-bound thing, right? Because it starts off with, how do people perceive your product? And that has no sort of time limit to it. It ties back to the sort of exploratory research that I've mentioned earlier. I think if you're, especially by the way, if you're not an expert researcher, and you're doing research as part of your job and not sort of the official part of it, right? So like you're a PM, you're a designer, you're an analyst, then doing something that sort of completes it, that is more qualitative, that looks into things in a sort of broader way, you would typically have impact just because it's not sort of time bound, right? You're looking broadly at the product and seeing what you don't know. And this typically is valued because you sort of shine a light about, people, all of them are passionate about their work. They actually don't, from my experience, they don't see it as an aggressive move, because you sort of come in and you said, look, I had a look at the entire flow and this is what came up. And, if someone is being very defensive and doesn't want to change something that's sort of married, I know, a few years ago, that they've done on the product, that is like, I can't answer that, right? I mean, that would, you'd probably have a few personas like that, maybe on the team, hopefully not. But I don't think that is the majority. I think most people really do try and create like a great product, and then any insight that would help them is typically appreciated. And I think from that sort of perspective, finding the insights that would go hand in hand with the problems that people are actually now trying to solve would get you more into the table, so to speak, right? More into the impact zone. And this could be with your counterparts, it could be with management, it could be with whoever in the organization. But basically you need to, one, focus on the critical question, and two, sort of broaden the perspective of people in terms of the tools that they have to look at the world.
I think that adding to that, as I mentioned before, clear KPIs tie it back to the business goals, and always look short-term, long-term, tactical, what we need to know now, and strategical, what we can answer to get us on the right path.
And how do you know that?
How well, it's being part of the crucial discussions. It's creating collaborations with stakeholders. It's a lot of work that is not just research. It's being a part of the crucial discussions in the organization, building strong connections with the teams, with stakeholders, with management.
If I can just quickly respond to that, I think I've been finding myself pushing myself into some meetings. So I think that's not like necessarily easy to do or intuitive for people to do. But if you want to make an impact, you need to be there. You need to be at the table. And sometimes they don't even know that you should be invited. But once you are invited, you can make an impact.
I think the best place to be is that you have some kind of champion, someone who is inserting you to these meetings. I think this is the best companies I saw. There's another person who is not in UX research who is telling you, hey, psst, you should be in that, and inserting you to that meeting. So if you have this kind of person in that company, you have the gold mine, because this is the way to get ahead in those companies. You can't like vouch for yourself, and sometimes you can't be inserting yourself to a meeting without like at least one person who is saying, yeah, you should be here. All right. So I wanted to add like one thing in the way. I was in a company that we had a lot of research that have been done, and a lot of research. So the problem was in the way that you deliver this research. Like, in what kind of way can you deliver the research for it to have an impact? Because we were flooded with information, and we worked remote. And even if we're not remote in the office, so when are you going to fit reading those things? So I have a designer tip for this. I would use this as like the way you're using social media, and just do it more in a way that is relatable. Make it in small chunks, like crunchy, and add the videos, creates and explore the channels that you have in the company. Do it if you need it in Slack and emails, text messages, everything you can do, even like with small stories of like presenting like a part of the thing. And I think this is a part that is hard for UX researchers, because sometimes they're shy or they don't want to be like having the spotlight in this kind of way. But I think when like Ofer did this in the Soluto, and it was when he did this, it was easy for me to elevate it and to like share it with the team and said, hey, look at this, look at that. I could read it very quickly. And also stakeholders, I know you think they are, but they're not reading stuff that you're sending them. So you might get to get them to pick in this and then save it for later, or them telling other people to read them for them. And this is the way you can create more impact in the organization, especially in enterprises.
So basically, a lot of stakeholders management, being at the right place at the right time, talking to stakeholders, managing them. That's what I feel from you. I don't know. It's not really a question to you. I'm just wondering if it's something that in some organizations, research is like a service where they're servicing a lot of different teams, and in some it's embedded. And it sounds like embedded would be the better way to maybe get to the right KPIs.
But maybe you don't have that in the beginning, because you get one person who's doing everything, and they can be everywhere.
Yeah, and this again brings us to the next question of, okay, places who don't have researchers. We talked a lot about researchers, but how do you get buy-in for research? How do you get buy-in for hiring research, if that's what you think you need? Maybe share some experiences of that or tips.
I I think I can talk about this because this is related to what I said before. It's the story. I think you need to prove these methodologies that they work. And the problem is if someone is trying to do this and doing this wrong, he's going to prove the opposite, that this is a waste of time and it's like academic playground, me playing with being smart or smart ass or whatever. This is dangerous, but I think if you're doing it right and you consulting with the right people, you can create a lot of impact by doing this yourself in the right places and places where you have where you see there's spotlight or impact, and you have time.
So in a company like yours, you would find the ways to do your research first to like kind of.
Hell yeah, yes,
Okay.
I will do this by my own in my own time, without saying it to anyone. Because if you will say it to someone, as they said, you're wasting your time, stop doing this. And if you have free time, do this and that. So you can't say anyone about doing this. After you get results, maybe. But this is the way I see like embedding it like very early into company and companies that have no idea what that is. And think this is a waste of time and workshop waste of time. You can say the word workshop in those companies, so they have challenges.
So I relate a lot. I think sort of like Nike says, just do it. Just start off by doing the research, and then once you have result, the appetite grows. I think it's sort of classic demand and supply type of thing. In Taboola specifically, we've also managed to create an appetite and kind of raise that demand through the fabulous practicum program, which really gave us sort of just the minds and kind of talent of people to actually conduct research, even at small scale. But then it sort of introduced this new world to teams that never experienced it. And then also I think it sort of ties back to your previous point about publishing what you do in a way that is sort of easy and not how do you say it? Like lomia-ish. I lost the word. Yeah, not overwhelming and not too detailed, but like actually getting to the point, like really bite-sized teasers almost of your conclusions. I think that would typically get that appetite going because people then come and they want more. And last final point is give people tools to do it themselves. I think if you're in a position that you are actually a professional UX research, you've got the tools, you've got the methodologies, don't just kind of keep it, my precious, keep it with you, but actually give other people the tools. If they get it right, they come and they show off and they, collaborate back with you. If they get it wrong, they come back and they collaborate with you on how to get it right. So you win either way. So I think sort of sharing actually and I can't say it, right. It's because democracy is that
Decentralized. Decentralized, you can say.
Decentralized, yeah. So decentralize the kind of research and the skills and the specialty. I think that would be also very helpful in creating sort of more appetite for it.
I agree, POC, small successes, but adding to that, I'm noticing, and I think everyone here, this is the conversation is all about, the negative sentiment research has the word research. So if you're struggling with that, just say that you're validating your potential solution and it might work.
I agree with the wording. I use that as well, validation. But validation is like is for before, and then you have after. You have, yeah. Validate what you did. Yes, yeah.
It kind of puts the exploratory part.
Like yeah, you were never exploring. You're just validating stuff. Yes. Exploring is for, I can say one more thing about the decentralized thing. We try to do this to have like to educate designers and PMs and give them more tools. But at the end, they were so busy with actually doing the other things that they're doing, that they wanted the UX research to join them and to be part of it, because it was excruciating to do both and to do this well. So I don't believe we can do this easily. You can do this if you have a lot of time. If you're working with a really slow-paced company, you might get to do this. But if you work fast, Israeli way, I don't think it fits into your schedule. It's hard. Okay.
Yeah, I think we'll open it to the crowd. We have so many questions yet, but we want to see if anyone in the audience here or at home has any questions. So if you have, don't be shy. Come on. Yes.
At one point, you guys said like to just do the research, to not ask, like to just go ahead and go forth with it. But I find that a lot of times, like those conversations with the stakeholders beforehand is what actually makes the research the most successful. Like really, like pivoting to understanding the bigger picture of like the business goals and all of this is what makes the research successful. So I kind of feel like that contradicted a little bit. So I would just love to hear your thoughts.
We'll just repeat it for the online. So you mentioned that talking to stakeholders beforehand and working with them is very important, but also maybe not talk to them at the same time. So yeah, the contradiction.
Well, I would talk to them and just not say it for research. It's for me to learn things that I need to do. And this is you get to talk easily. Maybe not for like really high stakeholders. It's very hard to get them no matter what you do. But I think like I'll meet with a lot of people to get the answers I need. And I think this is one of the most, this is the best, as you said, this is the best part of it. And this is the easiest part of it. After this, you need to do the job, the work. This is the part where you were just talking.
I'm actually not supporting, not saying so. I do think that just as any other project, if there's a need to scope down, then scope down. But I do believe that if you would properly, send through the message of how it will impact and how it will benefit the product, the feature, whatever, the end goal, at some extent, you will be able to do the research. For me, throughout my career, again, I had to scope down research, but I never got to the point when I was blocked out and no, don't do anything at all. It depends on how you present it. It depends on what stage of the project you are, and so many other attributes that affect that. But I do believe in being honest and really representing the whole phases of the work, whether you're a researcher or a UX doing research.
So maybe just sort of another point. I don't think it needs to be sort of deceptive, right? I think maybe we sort of maybe I gave the wrong impression when I kind of say, just do it and take ownership about it. It doesn't have to be deceptive, but it is. I think the initiative for doing it needs to come from you, and then meet with whoever you want to meet. Like most organizations don't have, very sort of strict rules around that, and gaining context, it's allowed and actually positive. And, it's just, I think, just step out of the, mental kind of framing that you have to ask permission or anyone would kind of commission the work, right? I've commissioned research about this and that. So I think the initiatives really needs to come from people who know what they're doing. And it's typically not going to be the same people who don't know what UX can bring them or UX research can bring them. So, it's not because anyone is bad. It's just you can't expect someone who doesn't have that insight to know what it would bring them down the line.
So maybe it's.
I just want to say they said a lot of deceptive. I just want to say I I didn't mean it to be deceptive. I just want to disclose everything. I'm because of the branding problem, okay, and because those people are very, very. Sometimes they're very like they're looking for something very specific you need to do now, and they don't want to hear anything else from you doing. So I do frame it in a different way because I am learning and I am validating, but I'm not researching. Okay, and that's it. I don't think it's deceptive. It's just I'm designer. We do branding. This is what I'm saying.
It sounds like a lot of it is just not doing a big deal out of research.
Yes.
Just research sounds big. Commissioning a research is like a big thing. So just I don't know, doing interviews doesn't sound as big, maybe. Yeah, it's part.
Just as like it's part of the process, just as like we're not doing a big deal out of QA. Oh, we're going to do QA. Okay, it's part of the process. So same for research.
And I think also some of it is I would call it like the between places, being proactive, as was said here. Like you if you are at meetings, listen to what people are saying, listen to what they're arguing about, because you might need to be the person saying, this is a research question, we could stop this argument and run this study to answer it, and then the argument could stop. So I think it's
Question, not an research question.
I think like that. I don't think necessarily you have to avoid the word research. You need to maybe to brand it differently. I think.
I think some people are using that word they're used to it in the academic kind of research, and they're scared of it. Of you like doing exploratory kind of, you want to learn things they are scared of it. So this is why I don't use it, because you are like stamping it with some kind of thing that they have in their head, and you need to avoid it because they fear it.
Just for the branding point, I use the word hypothesis a lot. Like, oh, this is an interesting hypothesis. Like, I wonder which of you is right, right? And then this is kind of how you get I actually don't avoid the word research, but just
Hypothesis is something you need to create product. So it's
it's also part of how people kind of talk in the day-to-day lives of the office. So I don't know, it's a good place to connect to.
Any more questions?
Yeah. I have one about the research findings share out phase. So like once you've synthesized your research and you've reached conclusions, what would be like good best practices and ways that you find work ideally to promote the research that you've already convinced people that needs to be done? You've done the great work.
You mean before you did the research?
No, I mean you've already done it, right? But now you want to make get the most impact out of it.
Yeah, let's repeat the question for people on Zoom. So the question was, after doing the research, how do you share? What's the best way or best practices for sharing it so people act on it?
So I will use the phrase, people are not interested in how the sausage is made. So it's really important to be concise, to get to the end point, like, okay, what should we do with it? So what and what now? These are the end goal. This is where we're aiming. This is what we need to do. And that's it. A lot of the time, we go back and yes, we did this research and we spoke with nice to have, but it's not the essentials. The essentials is where we're heading from here.
We had a very interesting research that they did of perception of time, and especially perception of time in service. So it was very, very interesting research, and I think what is important to show it to the right people, and they will promote it for others. So when you think about like share out, you think about how to share it for resharing, right? So if you bring like a big PDF, even if you got the first people to get interest in it, it will be harder as like for them to spread it out. So if it's a big company, I would see if you have like multiple kinds of share out. Maybe if you have a PDF and then small, maybe a short videos of I don't know. I like stories in terms of social, like kind of a very short kind of um, 30 seconds top kind of introduction of it. And then when you get the dopamine going, you'll go deeper into the thing, and you will think about this when you have a project about perception of time, like a waiting experience, for example, and you remember it too. So I know it's a lot of work, and you might have to talk with the designer or something, or editor or whatever. But I would learn the new tools, the editors and kind of stuff, and maybe have templates of, or maybe things that I already like that people are doing, and collect those to brainstorm how to do this if it's important to you.
So we have, so one, I really agree with what you said. I think, by the way, specifically for managers, the attention span, like you have it for everyone really, but with them, you know, first to second, if you haven't got into it, then that's it. The meeting, they're on their phone, they're doing something else. So, you know, just get to the point, and then the conclusions, and then that's it. And then if they want to know more, they'll ask. And I think we also have like a template for that, which is essentially we have one pager that shows kind of the intro to the just context, hypothesis, and goal. And then if there's a visual, then a visual. So that would be kind of the one page. And then we typically have another page with the results. So you get them kind of going and interested in the first pager, and second page is already the results, and that's it.
I have another example. One thing that Shahaf did in Saluto, he took the research and joined one team and asked them to be like thinking about how would they use it, and just sketched an example of how to use this. And then when they shared it out, they shared it with the example as an example. So people had more than just the action items, and they have specific here how one team used it. And look, this before and after, it was a great idea because it gave people the opportunity to understand how to use it in more like tactic kind of way.
Any questions from the audience at all? So the question was does UX research have room in startup companies who don't have time for anything?
Sure. This is what I answered before about doing this at your free time. It was specifically suited for these kind of companies, but you don't have time, and you need to be very specific about what you're going to research. Usually in big companies, you do zoom out of things. In small companies, you do a little bit differently. You like you ask customers, and you bring their voice, and you do like a little bit more tactic kind of thing. You don't do zoom outs because you don't have a zoom out to do. You'll have like a roadmap and the thing that you're doing, and you just get ahead a little bit and just try to mock things and ask people, and then bring it quickly back and play it for some people, and maybe show a solution that uses the insights from these kind of things. You can definitely do this. You just need to be meditating for it to come, because you'll be busy. You need to plan this and to be ready when it comes.
Totally agree. Adding to that, being very tactical, short term. If you remember my example from earlier, within like to pause something for a week to validate it properly can save the company 2 months later, finding out they did you made the wrong choice. So just being very tactical and accurate about what you want to learn.
The nice thing about the startup companies, when they're like, when you show that, they'll go, oh yes, so we'll go with this direction. They'll just pick at the solution, the right one, and just continue as nothing happened. They'll just go in your way without doing a big deal about it. You don't get a parade for succeeding in UX research. You just get to be right and do the things right. This is a big difference from an enterprise when you do have like a share out and you have none of that. You just pick the right solution for you, what you want to do. So it's like it's a bit private kind of thing, you know. You just get to do the right thing, the right model for the product or the right onboarding. It's in a small way in those companies.
There's a question from Kodaya Wolf asked, comment on the future of the profession. Would you recommend someone to enter the limited research market that exists in?
Okay, that's cool question. What's the next for UX research, and if it's a good profession to enter right now, or maybe generally what's next for UX research, as far as you know, and we'll mix it, I think, with your kind of any ending thoughts that you have or anything else that you want to share, because that's the last question that we have.
Right. So I think, there's always room. Like that is right. That is kind of the, but I mean, personally, I think, and this may be just in general more about the profession. I think, and I don't want to say sort of UX research, but more think of like behavioral science and research methodologies, I think should come essentially a skill that most professions hold. This is a personal opinion, but I think that the combination of skills is valuable and maybe sort of increasingly valuable, especially with sort of new tools that we've got in our doorstep, enabling new things. So I would sort of, if you kind of think of the future of research, I would think that this should become something of a sort of a core skill. In the same way, by the way, as analytical thinking and analytical skills have become, right? If in the past it was only product analysts or analysts in general in the company doing analysis, now everyone from developers to designers to PMs are doing analysis. And I think I would expect the same to happen with behavioral science and research methodologies, because I think it's such a sort of basic thing in our human experience and how we work and how we think, that it should be studied very early on and should be used in all professions. So having said that, I do think there would still be a room for professional researchers, exactly in the same way as you have with analysts today. So you'd have everyone doing it to some degree, and then people doing it professionally, but doing more of the, I would say, complex stuff. So this is kind of how I view it.
I couldn't agree more. I think that this is the way a lot of big corporates currently work. And adding to that, with all changes in the market, I think there were so many times in the history, even before I started my career, that people were saying, oh, so design is like over. Yeah, we have machines now, we have Photoshop, and AI now. Things are evolving, and I think that the right way to get your spot in the market is just to evolve and understand what the value you bring. That's it.
I think I'll add to what you guys said and add one more thing. I think it's risky today to start learning anything new. And there are students of mine here, and they know that it's a tough time. It's a tough time to go into into companies, to being any kind of junior PM designer or UX research. I think for the long run, what I hope to see is, first of all, UX research people that are doing a little bit more be like in the product and using AI to try out things and using their skills. I think this is what the markets sometimes do. They combine a couple of things and into the new thing that is trending, and then you get an in into the market. The problem is how to get in, and doing this in a way that is attractive to companies. This is what I like. I'm trying to predict how to do it. And think AI, when you have that, and you don't need to do design, you don't need to program things. What is left is understanding the users and zooming out and creating strategy. And this is kind of thing that you'll need to research, and you need to research a human behavior and not just like being automatic about it. So I think this is where it can be very handy to do this, but I would be in a place where I would have an approach to learn things and to touch other places. And this is what is risky today, because everyone is reserved with their own kind of role, and they are careful not to touch design because they are doing this, and the PM is careful and not to go into the PM kind of job. Maybe we should a little bit be in their business a little bit more.
Good. Okay, so we have quite a lot. It was kind of a dark ending to the. No, kidding. But actually, we were kind of hoping that it won't get pessimistic and that we'll have a lot of good things that people can do to make impactful research. And it looks like there are quite a lot. So thank you, Shai and Ori, for compiling this list during the sessions. We won't go over everything because we actually don't really have time, I think, to wrap it up like nicely, but we'll leave it here. We'll even make it easier to see. So if you want to take a picture, you could also do it later when we'll move from here, and we'll send it to everyone as well. So yeah, thank you so much, everyone, for coming. Do you want to say anything more? Thank you.
Thank you for hosting us.